I have, unfortunately at times, but also fortunately, my memory is very good. My memory is very, very good.
How good? What's good?
I mean, I can close my eyes and hear conversations that I had with people in with a fair degree of accuracy, I believe.
How far does that go back?
Oh, I can remember walks I took with my dad when I was 5 or 6 years old. I can remember the layout of my room and to like fine detail when I was a kid. Faces, I have a very strong recollection of faces and facial recognition. I don't track time well. As a professor, we get some leeway, but I perpetually run late. I don't track time. And until recently, I didn't really have a sense of death. I mean, I knew it existed. I've had people close to me die. All 3 of my academic advisors died, suicide, cancer. Yeah, the joke in my field is you don't want me to work for you.
I was going to say,
yeah, I'm the common denominator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, for a guy that didn't grow up in the inner city or military, I've had, quite a few friends die. Drug overdoses, suicides, and it's kind of hard to know if it's on average more or less. I was a teen in the late 80s, early 90s, and there weren't a lot of people doing therapy. There were no psychological meds for the treatment of different conditions. Maybe that's it. Who knows? In any case, if I spend any amount of time thinking about anything of the past, I can easily drift into it. In fact, until very recently, very, very recently, much of my cognition each day was a battle between trying to anchor in the present and thinking forward, and being pulled into memories of the past, kind of orienting toward the past.
Such a rich opportunity to ruminate.
Yeah. Or seeing in, even music from the past acting as a cue to the past. Something happened in like the last 8-9 months where I feel hyper focused on the present. Very, very little focus on the past. Very little. I have exquisite memory of the past, but very little. In fact, one of my journal entries was I was trying to think of, and this is somewhat embarrassing because it's not the way I would have scripted it, but I was thinking about from the time as early back as I could remember, the different animals that I felt like I sort of related to or embodied it. When I was a kid, I had the same voice I have now. They called me Froggy. Because I was like the kid from the Little Rascals, is a show that most people now don't know. He'd like the kid talk like this. And I had, my Adam's apple was out when I was a little kid. I had hair on my Adam's apple. It's like I'm a heterozygote for a certain genetic mutation. I overproduce androgen from my adrenals. If you have 2 copies, it can make you infertile. Fortunately, I don't. I have 1 copy, and it doesn't result in any other like bodily differences or anything like that. I'm very fortunate in that way, and I'm aware I can reproduce. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. So, but then, there were different animals at different stages of my life as I grew and matured and experienced different things. I was like, at one stage of my life, I felt very oriented towards the mustelids, and then at other times towards like a certain species of cat. And like, I identified with them in a number of ways. And then recently I was on this long run. I do these long Sunday rucks and runs. And I was thinking to myself, like, where am I at right now? And all of a sudden I just went, oh shit, this is about the least exciting animal I could think about. And I realized, like, right now at this stage of my life, I don't know how long this will last. And this is very personal, but whatever. F it. Like lately, I'm just kind of opening up on podcasts, my own and others. I realized, and no, it has nothing to do with butterflies. I realize I'm in total caterpillar mode, and it has nothing to do with becoming a butterfly. Not that that would be a bad thing. It's that I'm able to orient towards the tasks of the day divided into 3 parts. I basically have vision about this far in front of me, despite what I said a few minutes ago. I can think about what I need to do. I know where I'm headed. I can move forward, not backward, but I can't seem to bring my thinking any further than that. And it's such a new place for me. I can't think I have to consciously try and think into the past. I'm like, that was yesterday. It was yesterday. I can't do it. Now, I'm not in denial. I can do it if I need to. But for me, this is a very functional way to be at this point in my life because of the enormous number of tasks in my life. Fortunately, the enormous number of people that I love and that I want to spend time with and make time for. But somehow I have just like, so I drew it out. I was like, freaking caterpillar, and we'll see what happens. And and where this goes. But, the other animals in here, there was a rhinoceros phase. That was interesting. Moving very slowly, but with a lot of force, on anything that was in my way at one stage. there's been times when I've felt like a raptor, where I was just kind of like placed and really observant. I spent an entire year speaking very little, believe it or not. People in my life will be like, what year was that? I didn't talk to you that year. Exactly. You didn't talk to me that year, and I didn't talk to you. If you're wondering where I was. So right now, by sort of like identifying with this kind of mode of caterpillar vision and movement, everything is in small increments. You know, I even feel it in the way that I talk and the way I parse ideas. I'm writing the bonus chapters for my book, which comes out in April of next year. Like, everything is line by line. Everything is iterative. And I am not oriented toward the past. It's there if I need it. It's like a book on a shelf I can go grab and look things up. But until now, have existed very much in like sort of thinking about the losses of past, the wins of past, identifying with that. And I don't know what caused this. I can't point to one single psychedelic journey. Not that I've been doing a lot of psychedelics. We could talk about that. I was involved in some psychedelic trials, but I don't think that's it. I think it's that I've matured. I think the brain matures your whole life. I don't think we have childhood and adulthood and then death. I think we have a developmental arc that starts when we're born, probably before we're born. I mean, after all, you know, we were embryos with, who knows if we have consciousness, but we were alive, right? Born, and then we have a developmental arc. And the great psychologist Erickson talked about at every stage of life, from birth until death, until one's 80s and 90s, you're working out some core conflicts of agency versus, you know, autonomy versus having to do what other people have you do. And, you know, I forget the stages off the top of my head because it's not my area of expertise, but look at my dad, who's turning 81 in November, who fortunately, you know, God willing, is going to live another 20, 25 years with immense vigor. And he's still cognitively super sharp. And he's working out whatever it is you work out when you're 80.
Yep.
I'm working out whatever it is now. But right now, it's like caterpillar vision. And as a consequence, the past, while important and informs a lot of who I am and what I do, it's not in my consciousness at all. And I must say, it's a great place to be, because throughout my 30s, I felt very stricken, very like pulled in different directions based on past, present, and efforts toward the future. So if I say this in part because if you're struggling, like kind of feeling stuck in your life story, there's great advantage to just letting some time pass.
Getting older.
Just getting older is the best. As long as you train with weights 3 times a week, run 3 times a week, long, medium, and short runs, and you take a cold shower, and you eat mostly unprocessed and minimally processed foods, and you try and get sleep, and you limit your alcohol, and you deal with any addictions you might have, and you work on your traumas, like, you're going to have a great freaking life. You know, you're going to be healthier than 90% of people in the world, right? Are you going to take gold at the Olympics? Are you going to be Cole Hawker and take the gold from 5th position in the final 100 meters of the 1500? No, unless you're Cole Hawker, but like, you can still have an amazing life. And so I think there have been so many years where I've just been like, God, like, this just feels like a battle. This just feels like, you know, and I can't complain. I've been given so many opportunities and gifts, and like trying to make the best of those and share. But like, I just feel like, listen, if it's a freaking caterpillar, it's a caterpillar. And then I got back from that run, and I was thinking to myself, oh no, now I got to like think about the butterfly thing. And like, this is turning out pretty soft. And then I thought, hey, well, that's pretty cool. So I started researching caterpillars, because this is me. So I started reading about caterpillars. They are amazing. Like, some of them have adapted different poisons so that the birds that eat them don't die, but literally survive and transmit the discomfort by feeding their young. And then the young are like, ugh. And they actually know, they form a permanent memory not to eat those caterpillars. So I now look at caterpillars completely differently.
Wow, that's cool.
I spent a lot of time drawing caterpillars. I haven't yet watched a documentary about caterpillars.
I'm sure you'll find one.
But anyway, I'll avoid going down this hole any more than I already have. But I think there's great wisdom in trying to think about different animals and how we orient toward them as people. I certainly look at other people and think, you know, like, what dog are they, et cetera. And in part because I think that other animals, in the absence of their kind of self-awareness, they're displaying to us how different the biases of different components of the nervous system. So like dogs that move their tails a lot and have a lot of spontaneous movement, right? Like the pit bull breeds versus a bulldog, which doesn't move unless it has to. They have different spontaneous temperaments. And then you look at people. I have a colleague, he's Hungarian, He has a lab in Switzerland, and the guy is all staccato movements, and he's like this thin and has like 5% body fat naturally, right? And then I have other colleagues who like more resemble melted candles, and they don't move so much, you know, and they need to exercise more because I love them, and you don't see many overweight 80-year-olds. So it'd be nice to have you around longer. So 3 times a week, resistance training and cardio.